going to be an unhappy situation. I'm making all the money and she's not. So I called her and told her she had to make a deal, and she did. She really put it to him. But that's good. No, that was fine.
Good for you.
They can afford.
James Garner confessed something shocking about Doris Day that a married man is simply not supposed to say out loud. He never said it in an interview. He never said it on television. He never breathed a word of it to a single reporter. He saved it for his memoir, setting it down in his own handwriting for the entire world to read. And this came from a man who stayed married to the same woman for 58 years, loyal, private, and honest to the very end. It is not a rumor. It is not gossip. It is verified. And it is real. By the end of this story, the easygoing, honest James Garner you thought you knew will look like a very different man.
She's got the greatest face on earth. You know, the Doris Day smile is the greatest smile in the history of movies.
The confession he buried in his memoir. For more than 50 years, the world believed it knew exactly who James Garner was. A man married to the same woman for 58 years, loyal, decent, and honest. The sort of leading man Hollywood almost never produces anymore. So when he finally revealed how he truly felt about Doris Day, it landed like a thunderclap. He never said it in an interview. He never said it on television. He never breathed a word of it to a single reporter. He saved it for the pages of his own memoir, in his own words, and what he wrote there stopped people cold. Garner wrote that Doris Day was unlike any woman he had ever worked with. She didn't play sexy, he said, and she didn't act sexy. She simply was sexy, and everything she did seemed completely effortless. In fact, when he looked back over his entire career, he counted her among only 2 leading ladies he had ever found truly, magnetically desirable on screen. The other was Julie Andrews. For most men, that kind of praise alone would have been the end of it. Garner went further. He admitted, plainly and in print, that if he had not been married, he would have tried to carry things forward with Doris Day after hours. Sit with that for a moment. A happily married man, a famously private man, a man whose word was considered his bond, chose to publish those words for the entire world to read. This was not a scandal whispered behind closed doors. This was not a rumor cooked up by a tabloid. It was a confession, written by his own hand, about a feeling he had quietly carried for decades. And that is exactly what makes it so powerful. Garner was not chasing attention or stirring up gossip. He was simply, finally, telling the truth about something real. He had admired Doris Day from the very first day they met, and rather than carry that admiration silently to his grave, he chose to set it down on paper so that no one would ever have to wonder how he felt. But to understand how a bond that deep was ever born, and why a confession like that would carry so much weight, you have to go all the way back to 1963, to the 2 films that first brought them together. Instant on-screen chemistry. The story of James Garner and Doris Day truly began in 1963, the year they first appeared together in the romantic comedy The Thrill of It All. From the instant the cameras started rolling, something clicked between them. The crew noticed it right away, the way the 2 of them seemed to read each other without a word, as if they had been performing together for years. Garner was fresh off his hit television series Maverick, and proving he could handle comedy just as easily as drama, while Doris Day was the reigning queen of the box office, one of the most beloved stars in all of Hollywood. On paper, they were a perfect match. On screen, they were even better. In The Thrill of It All, Day plays Beverly Boyer, an ordinary housewife whose life is turned upside down when she becomes the celebrity spokeswoman for a product called Happy Soap, suddenly out-earning her own husband by a wide margin. Garner plays that husband, a doctor named Gerald, who is far from thrilled that his wife's sudden fame keeps pulling her away from home. The plot pits the couple's domestic life against her booming new career, but the real magic was never in the plot. It was in the way the two of them played off each other. As Gerald, Garner met Day's bubbly, fast-talking charm with the perfect amount of weary exasperation, like a man hopelessly outmatched and secretly delighted by it. The film is full of moments where he fumbles his way through caring for their children while she is off shooting commercials. But the scenes that crackle most are the ones where the two characters clash and flirt at the very same time. In one unforgettable beat, Gerald grabs Beverly's wrists to stop her excited gesturing, only to find himself staring into her eyes and pulling her in for a kiss. The film was also packed with the kind of physical comedy that made the era's romantic comedies so beloved. In one famous gag, Garner's character drives the family convertible straight into a swimming pool he did not even know had been built in his own backyard, installed by the Happy Soap sponsors only hours earlier. Played with Garner's trademark deadpan, moments like that revealed a gift for comedy that his tougher dramatic roles had never let audiences see. Part of the charm was that the two of them played a married couple in both of the films they made together, which let their bickering, their warmth, and their flirtation all feel completely lived in. There was no slow build toward romance, no will they or won't they. From the very first frame, the characters already belonged to each other, and that easy familiarity is exactly what made audiences fall for them. Day had a rare gift for blending wholesomeness, humor, and a quiet kind of allure all at once, and Garner matched her every step of the way. The director, Norman Jewison, understood exactly what he had. Putting these two natural comedians together was box office gold. The thrill of it all became a major hit, and audiences immediately began clamoring to see the pair reunited on the big screen as soon as possible. They would not have to wait long. Their playful friendship. What made their connection special was that it did not stay on the screen. Off-camera, James Garner and Doris Day developed a warm, genuine friendship built on laughter and real affection, and the roots of it ran deeper than Hollywood. Both of them were Midwesterners at heart. Day had grown up in Cincinnati, Garner in Oklahoma, and that shared, down-to-earth, no-nonsense background gave them an instant understanding. As Garner's daughter Gigi later recalled, the two of them simply understood each other's rhythms, with no airs and no pretenses between them. They also bonded over something close to both their hearts, a deep love of animals. During the filming of their first movie, there was a scene involving a horse, and Garner brought his young daughter onto the set to pet it, even treating her to a ride around the soundstage between takes. In her own memoir, Day fondly remembered Garner wandering over to keep her horse company between scenes. It was no surprise that both stars would go on to devote much of their later lives to animal welfare, or that Gigi would one day create an animal rescue fund in her father's honor. Their easy rapport survived even disaster. While shooting their second film together, Move Over Darling, also in 1963, Garner accidentally cracked two of Day's ribs during a comedic scene in which he had to yank her away from a rival character. The professional that she was, Day kept right on working despite the pain. Later, with the humor that defined their whole friendship, she forgave him completely, telling him, "I forgive you for breaking my ribs, both of them," and insisting he not give it another thought. Day adored working with him. She spoke often of how much fun they had together, calling him a marvelous actor who was warm and real and made her laugh. "He's so funny and so nice," she once said of him. "I just love him." She even admitted that being around Garner made her feel, in her own words, married. Such was their easy closeness. The feeling was entirely mutual. Garner said he only wished he could have made 50 more pictures with her. Even as the years passed and the two rarely saw each other in person, they stayed close through regular phone calls, almost always started by Day, because Garner famously could not stand the telephone. She would tease him about it, asking why on earth he could not simply pick up a phone, and he would only grumble back at her. Yet that grumbling never carried any real distance. Their friendship was the kind that could pick up exactly where it had left off, every single time, no matter how long it had been. What made it all the more remarkable was how little they actually saw one another. Two of the biggest stars of their generation living in the same town, and yet their entire friendship was sustained almost entirely down a telephone line. There were no lavish dinners, no red carpet reunions, no staged displays of closeness for the cameras. Just two old friends checking in, trading jokes, and quietly refusing to let the years pull them apart. In an industry where so many relationships are built on usefulness and ambition, theirs was built on nothing but genuine affection. But that loyalty was about to be tested in the cruelest way imaginable. Behind Doris Day's sunny smile, a quiet betrayal was already taking shape, one that would leave her broke, humiliated, and desperate, and one that would finally push the intensely private James Garner to break his silence for good. First, though, there was the small matter of just how deeply this man admired her. Garner's deep admiration for Day. If the confession revealed how Garner felt about Doris Day, the woman, his words about her work revealed how much he respected Doris Day, the artist. He was endlessly generous in describing what made her so good, and the way he talked about her sounded less like a co-star and more like a fan who happened to share the screen with his idol. Even at the height of his own fame, he spoke about her with the wide-eyed wonder of someone who could hardly believe his luck. He famously called her the Fred Astaire of comedy. Just as Astaire made every partner he danced with look brilliant, Garner said, Doris had a gift for lifting everyone in a scene around her. He admitted that he would often walk onto a set with a fixed idea of how to play a moment. But the instant he saw what she was doing, her timing, her instincts, her feel for the scene, he would throw his own plan out the window nearly every time and simply play it her way. Making a movie with Doris, he once said, was as easy as a piece of cake, a ride on her coattails from beginning to end. His admiration reached all the way back to the very first time he ever saw her on a screen. Long before he became an actor himself, Garner was just an ordinary moviegoer who watched a young Doris Day light up a film in song, and he never forgot the jolt of it. The beauty, the voice, the sheer star power pouring off her. Years later, actually getting to work beside her felt almost surreal, like a fan being handed a seat at the table. In a heartfelt essay he wrote for her own autobiography, Garner tried to put his finger on the exact quality that made her so magnetic. He decided that Doris was a genuinely captivating woman who had no idea just how captivating she was, and that her very innocence was an enormous part of her charm. It was a rare and beautiful thing, one screen legend writing so openly and so warmly about another, and it made clear that what he felt for her had never been fleeting. It had settled into his heart and stayed there for the rest of his life. But admiration was about to matter far more than any words ever could. The darkest chapter of Doris Day's life was closing in fast, and when it finally arrived, it would reveal exactly how fierce James Garner's loyalty truly ran. Lasting bond until Garner's death. Though their paths rarely crossed after 1963, the bond between James Garner and Doris Day only deepened with time, lasting 5 full decades until his death. They did not run into each other at parties or premieres, mostly because Garner loathed dressing up and making the Hollywood rounds. Instead, their friendship lived in those long telephone calls, in the comfortable silences only two old Midwesterners could share, in a connection that never needed much to stay strong. That loyalty was tested by the hardest chapter of Doris Day's life. Behind her sunny image, Day had endured a string of painful marriages, but the most devastating blow came from her third husband, the producer Marty Melcher. Melcher had boosted her career and even adopted her son, and for years she believed she had finally found stability. Then, in 1968, Melcher died suddenly, and the truth came crashing down. Day discovered that her husband had quietly squandered nearly everything she had ever earned, leaving her around $450,000 in debt. The woman who had filled movie theaters across America for an entire decade was suddenly broke, forced to work relentlessly just to climb out of the hole he had left behind. Garner had never trusted Melcher. By his own account, the man quietly skimmed a fee off the top of every single one of Doris's film deals, and Garner kept his distance, offering little more than a cold good morning whenever Melcher turned up on set. "The only safe way to deal with a man like that," he once said, "was to keep your hand on your wallet." But out of respect for Doris, he had said nothing publicly for years. Once the betrayal came fully to light, he no longer held back. He did not whisper it, and he did not soften it. He called Melcher a shallow, insecure hustler, accused him of ripping Doris off for years, and bluntly declared that without her, the man could not have driven a truck. After so much silence, it was a fierce burst of honesty, and really an act of loyalty, one friend finally standing up for another. Day would eventually win back some of what she had lost in a long legal battle against Melcher's former business partner. What few people realized was that Garner was quietly carrying his own pain through all of it. Behind that famous, easygoing smile, he privately battled depression, chronic physical pain, and a stage fright that haunted him for his entire career. Every time audiences watched him laugh and charm his way through a scene, he was shouldering something heavy inside. And through all those long, difficult years, one friend never stopped reaching out. Doris Day kept calling again and again, even knowing how much he hated the phone, because real friendship does not give up. That devotion carried all the way to the end. As Garner's health declined in his final years, his daughter Gigi made sure the two old friends got to speak one last time. She placed the telephone gently in her father's hands. Two old friends. One last conversation, one final goodbye. It was, Gigi later said, a truly lovely talk, and she was endlessly grateful they got to hear each other's voices one more time. On July 19, 2014, James Garner passed away at the age of 86. Doris Day was heartbroken. That is the real legacy of James Garner and Doris Day. Not a scandal or gossip. Something far rarer in Hollywood. A friendship that stayed honest and tender across half a century. He admitted to feelings he could never act on, and told the truth about them anyway. He defended her when no one else would. He carried a private pain the cameras never caught. And he held on to one friendship for 50 years. Some men spend their whole lives never saying what they truly feel. James Garner, in the end, said all of it. When the news of his passing reached her, Doris Day did not reach for some grand theatrical statement. She simply spoke from the heart. The world, she said, had lost an exceptional human being, and she had lost a dear friend. They had made only 2 films together, yet across more than 50 years they had clicked from the very first moment they met, and that closeness never once faded. And then, about the man who had admired her, defended her, and answered the phone every single time she called. she said the 3 words that held half a century inside them. I loved Jimmy. No performance, no Hollywood drama, just the quiet truth of one old friend about another. So now we want to hear from you. Were you surprised to learn how honestly James Garner finally spoke about his feelings for Doris Day? And what do you think was the real secret to a Hollywood friendship that managed to last 50 years? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.